Well, good morning, guys. Aaron Dorr here with Iowa Gun Owners. Hope you guys are enjoying your weekend. But, guys, we've got really big news to talk about in our fight for Second Amendment Preservation Act. It was a big week in Des Moines as we fight to defang Joe Biden's gun control agenda. So we're going to discuss this today, where we are in the process here in Des Moines, who is supporting SAPA, especially in the Iowa House, and kind of who we're also fighting against now, who the enemies are, who are trying to stop us here in Des Moines. So get signed in, guys. Should be a great video. Hope you guys really enjoy it and help us advance the bill by taking action at the end of today's broadcast. So if in case you missed our video update from a couple of days ago, our legislation in the House File 2303, was filed this week by Representative Jeff Shipley. I got a photograph of Jeff right here. Jeff is from Fairfield. And perhaps more than anybody else in the entire House right now, Jeff understands that if we don't have a plan, a way to deal with federal tyranny, federal gun control from Joe Biden's executive actions, from his pen on his desk, we're going to have real problems here in Iowa later on this year. And so Jeff happily agreed to lead this fight for us in the House. And the really amazing news is that when Jeff filed this bill this week, he didn't do it alone. He had 19 total names on this bill. 18 members of his caucus heard from you, received your emails, also heard from Jeff, talked with him, and added their name as a co-sponsor to this bill. Folks, this is monumental. We have almost 1/3 of the entire Republican caucus on this bill before the push even begins in committee or anyplace else. And so a major shout out to Jeff Shipley. Lots of guys and gals talk about being pro-gun here in Des Moines, especially in an election year. But Jeff has been working with us tirelessly to perfect this legislation and then work to get as many of his colleagues as he could on the bill. So we're very thankful for that. And we have a list here of the names. I'm going to put those on the screen. These are the guys and gals who have co-sponsored SAPA legislation right now in Des Moines. The middle of my screen right there. Representative Shipley, of course, is the lead sponsor on this. Co-sponsors include Representatives Bradley, Gennari, Bowden, Cisneros, Salmon, Osmundson, Kaufman, Westrich, Wheeler, Jacobson, Gerhold, Thompson, Stone, Kerr, Mitchell, Grabber, Sorensen, and Nordman. All of those names you see in your screen right now have co-sponsored SAPA legislation here in Des Moines. If you don't see your state rep's name on there, you should contact him and just say, why are you not in the bill? We want you on this bill. We want you to co-sponsor this bill and support the bill and help us advance this thing through the process. For those who don't know yet what exactly SAPA legislation means, a Second Amendment Preservation Act, just as a brief reminder, what SAPA says is that Iowa cops are to enforce Iowa law when it comes to firearms and ammunition. We're not telling the feds what they can and cannot do. We'd love to, but there is a supremacy clause issue there. We're simply saying that the feds can't tell us what to do. The feds can't come into Iowa and say, you guys are all going to enforce our executive orders attacking gun owners. That's the issue here. It's a states' rights, state sovereignty issue, that this is a sovereign state. We have our own legislature, and we have our own laws that are passed by them that are the best interest of our own state. We're not simply an appendage of the White House. We're not simply an appendage of a tyrannical federal government. If our job was to submit to everything coming out of the White House, we might as well dissolve the state capitol, sell it as an Airbnb, and just all submit to our all-powerful leadership in Washington, D.C. But thankfully, in our founding fathers' wisdom, we have separation of powers. We have state sovereignty, and the states can do what's in the best interest of their own citizens. It's always been that way. That's what SAPA does. It says this is our state. We have gun laws that work for us here in Iowa, and we want Iowa cops to enforce Iowa laws when it comes to guns and ammunition. It's a great bill. Now, there's also teeth built into this bill. Now, we know we have to have this. Over the last 2 years now, 18 months, we have seen everybody from city municipalities to school boards to agencies violate state law repeatedly, wantonly, openly, when it comes to masking mandate policies and all kinds of things over the last 18 months. So we know if we tell like, say, Iowa City or even Des Moines or the Quad Cities, you're going to follow SAPA. If we don't have teeth in it, they're going to say, screw you, and we're going to do whatever the heck we damn well please. That's just the reality right now in a growing number of blue cities in the state. And so what we're doing with this is having a teeth built into it. So if they violate SAPA law, let's say you're a gun owner in Iowa City and they violate SAPA law, you can take that department to civil court for damages. You don't have to ask Tom Miller for help. You don't have to ask even Governor Reynolds for help. You, on your own authority, can take them in to civil court for damages. That is what makes SAPA legislation so powerful. It has the enforcement is given back to we, the people. And frankly, it's a direct copy of the bill that was passed in Missouri last year, a bill that we helped draft and fight for down there with our sister organization, the Missouri Firearms Coalition. So this is a fantastic bill. And there's a real urgency here, though. And so that's why you've got to take action today and contact the Public Safety Committee members in the House, because there's a clock on this now. You know, we fought for years for stand your ground law and shall issue and constitutional carry here in Iowa. And in many ways, there wasn't a tremendous sense of urgency there because it wasn't that hard, certainly after we had shall issue, for gun owners to get a permit. But there's an urgency here that you have to be aware of. As a reminder, you know, Joe Biden cannot pass gun control in the Senate. He does not have 60 votes. Heck, he hardly even has 50 votes right now on anything. But he's doing gun control through executive orders. And there's two of these that are going to take effect this year. They were added to the Federal Registry, kind of the federal working document on their upcoming legislation and upcoming executive orders just in the last week. The first two of these will take effect this year. In June, we're going to have the final order from the ATF that makes it a crime to have an 80% lower receiver. These are very popular homemade firearms that are very common here in Iowa and across the country. They're going to be illegal unless you have them serialized or registered in some way by June of this year, so 3 or 4 months from now. That's already been announced. The final order takes effect in June. Now, I want to be clear on this. This is completely unconstitutional, tyrannical BS. This law is not a law. It never went through the Congress. It was never voted on by anybody in the House or Senate. This is an executive order, but it will be effective in June of this year. The second one deals with the very popular AR-15 pistol braces. And these are very common. In fact, the Congressional Research Office said that 10 to 40 million people already possess these very common accessories. They're wildly popular across the country. And the Supreme Court, back during the Heller case back in 2008, used this idea of common use. If an item was in common use, that had to be considered before they would simply make it illegal. But for Joe Biden and his handlers in D.C., they don't give a crap. Yeah, this is very much in common use. But by August of this year, these pistol braces will be a felony unless you have added them to the National Firearms Act via a tax stamp like you would a machine gun. Very heavy-handed, tyrannical garbage. And so this idea of SAPA cannot wait until next session. Lawmakers in Des Moines cannot simply punt this for this session, because we're going to have Iowans facing criminal charges as early as this year if these executive orders are enforced here in Iowa. And see, that's the whole point. The DOJ doesn't have the manpower to deal with this. They don't have the manpower to enforce this. So they are counting on forcing, commandeering, mandating that Iowa cops, Iowa troopers, Iowa deputies, Iowa city police officers enforce this stuff. If we deny them that power, if we deny them that cooperation, that manpower, their agenda is going to fall flat on its butt. And that is the whole goal behind SAPA. So there is an urgency here. That's why you've got to take action today, guys, and contact the members of the committee. And the link is below. Tell them you want them to move this bill quickly through the committee process. We have to be very careful, though, about compromises. What we have drafted here today is the best version of SAPA that Iowa has ever seen. It is a rip from the bill that we helped draft that is now law in Missouri. But I'm just going to tell you right now, Iowa's law enforcement community, the leadership anyway, like the ISSDA, the city police off, the city sheriff's leaders in towns like Des Moines, the Quads, Sioux City, all these bigger cities, they hate this because deep down in these departments, their leadership has always been an enemy to our gun rights. These guys opposed shall issue way back in the day. They opposed stand your ground law for years. They opposed constitutional carry for years. And so we have a real problem right now where the leadership of these organizations is working in Des Moines trying to stop this legislation from happening. And if they can't stop it, their goal is to weaken it with harmful amendments. This is the real danger we have got to be on guard against. If we pass SAPA without the teeth, if we pass SAPA without the civil penalties built into it, then we are doing nothing but passing a paper tiger. If there is no way to hold Iowa City PD or Des Moines PD or Davenport PD or Sioux City PD accountable, if there's no way to force them to follow the law, which they're sworn to uphold, they will violate it at will. I can absolutely guarantee you of that. Again, the frontline officers love SAPA, just like frontline cops here in Iowa loved constitutional carry and stand your ground and shall issue. But their department heads, many times they are appointed by the mayors in these cities. Their department heads hate this because it attacks their power base. And so there is efforts underway right now, we are told, in Des Moines, especially in the Senate, to weaken SAPA and take these teeth out. We cannot let that happen. If that happens, we will have no protection here in Iowa later on this year when these orders from the Biden administration become effective. So again, hit the link below and tell the members of the committee and the Public Safety Committee to fight for this bill as written, to advance this bill as written and get it on the floor. There is a growing list of people who are opposing this. And some of the names of the lobbyists who are opposed to this right now include Everytown for Gun Safety. So no big surprise, Michael Bloomberg has his people right here in Iowa, funded by his New York City, billionaire fund, fighting to stop SAPA. They hate this. The Interfaith Alliance of Iowa Action Fund have lobbied officially on the state's website, declared against this bill. The League of Women Voters here in Iowa is against this bill. Who else? Iowans for Gun Safety is against this bill. The Iowa County Attorneys Association is undecided. And I want to talk about that for a moment. When an organization like the County Attorneys Association enters an undecided declaration on the state's website, that really isn't what it looks like. When they say undecided, that gives weak-kneed Republicans the cover to say, well, if the county attorneys aren't even sure about this, then I can't vote for this either. So by having county attorneys, lobbyists, Kelly Myers, declare undecided on this bill, it is being used right now in Des Moines to take pressure away from this legislation and give weak-kneed Republicans an out on this bill. What's really amazing to me is, besides the list of people who are publicly opposing this bill, is the list of organizations who are privately opposing this bill. Privately, or not so much privately opposing this bill. The Iowa Firearms Coalition has been working behind the scenes for 6 months now to shut down SAPA legislation here in Des Moines. They have been working to sow seeds of doubt about the bill by straight up lying about what the bill does. NRA, frankly, is in the exact same position. NRA and the Iowa Firearms Coalition have been working to make this false argument that SAPA legislation violates the Supremacy Clause. You see, what they want lawmakers to think is that this bill gets in the way of federal authority. And I want to say it again. That's an uninformed, ignoramus position to take. SAPA legislation does not tell the federal government what they can do in Iowa. What it says is that they, the federal government, cannot tell us what we can do in our own state. Thank you very much, here in Iowa. If the feds want to come in here and try to be jackboots and attack gun owners over these EOs, they can do that. but they're not going to have any cooperation from Iowa's law enforcement community if we pass SAPA. The fact that IFC and NRA are still trotting out this lie when they know it's false is an embarrassment, frankly, and a major disservice to their own membership. Very sad to see. So, folks, this is a major fight, and we need you guys to get on board, take action today. We have accomplished so much here in Iowa over the last almost 15 years that we have been in operation now. We have reshaped the entire state. We have passed monumental advancements of gun rights. We have secured freedoms that were thought impossible 10 or 15 years ago here in Des Moines. But if we don't deal with this federal threat now, all that we've accomplished, all that we've done could be for nothing. Because if Biden can simply wave his pen and declare guns, ammo, accessories, all these items illegal, and make our own state law enforcement community enforce this crap against us, it will all be for nothing. So please take action. And I would finally say this is about much more than simply guns. It's about much more than the Second Amendment. This idea of state sovereignty, the idea of the states having the authority to tell the federal government to pound sand, that we will not aid you in enforcing federal tyranny. This is the issue of our time right now. That's why you see Joe Biden attacking red state governors all the time, because he knows if these guys stand up against him, and gals for Kim Reynolds, if they stand against him and they refuse to cooperate with his agenda is going to fall flat on its face. So this is the issue of our time, guys. Please take action. Contact the committee. We have overwhelming Republican majorities in Des Moines right now. 60-40 in the Iowa House. 60-40. If there was ever a time to get this done, it is now. So, guys, take action. Share our video. Get involved today at joinigo.com. We'll keep you guys informed in the coming days. Take care.